One drunken night, Andrew agreed to my confession. 3 days later, he followed True Love Abigail abroad. He sent just one voice message to brush me off. Sorry, Kelly. You deserve someone better. And just like that, he dumped me. I became a joke in his circle of friends. 2 years later, he came back. At the welcome party, I quietly listened as everyone around praised how perfect the two of them looked together. It felt like they were deliberately saying it just for me. And Andrew, with his arm around the woman at his side, noticed me and looked a bit surprised. Kelly, you're not still holding a grudge, are you? He gave an apologetic laugh. Just pretend I was immature 2 years ago and didn't think it through before agreeing to you. Don't take it personally, okay? We can still be friends. With remarks like that, anyone would think I'm some desperate Klingon. I didn't answer. My phone in my pocket rang just then. I'm a bit hard of hearing and always use speakerphone when I answer calls. So the moment I picked up, that magnetic voice echoed through the whole private room. Where's my wife? I'm coming to pick you up. Chapter 1. The private room fell silent for several seconds. Someone whispered, "Damn, the voice on the other end sounds amazing." No sooner had I spoken than someone next to him jabbed me in the ribs with their elbow. Abigail looked up at me. That voice sounds really familiar. The moment she said that, all eyes landed on her, mine included. Abigail laughed in disbelief. The one you're on the phone with, could it be the eldest son of the Bi group? The atmosphere instantly stiffened. Andrew also furrowed his brow. Joaquin Bi heard it and replied lazily from the other end. It's me. Fuck. Is it really the Bi I'm thinking of? Someone muttered under their breath. I stayed calm and just sent back an address before hanging up. Andrew stared at me, his tone sharpening slightly. Clearly not believing me. You're married? Yeah. I looked up at him, replying while deftly navigating the chat interface. My fingers quickly sending a transfer under the table to the other side. Then I picked up my glass, took a sip, and smiled. My husband's here to pick me up, so I won't keep you all from your fun. I'll head out first. Just as I stood, Andrew called me back. Turning around, his handsome face darkened slightly as he sneered. You used to say getting married too young leads to regret, didn't you? He was clearly losing it, but Abigail grabbed his arm and whispered something in his ear. I didn't care and just said, people always change. Then I walked off. Honestly, I don't really understand how Andrew's mind works. 2 years ago, he left without a word and made me the joke for ages. And now he still has the nerve to question me. Ugh. Outside the restaurant, cold wind mixed with fine rain hit my face. So I pulled my hood up. I glanced down at my phone. The red envelope I'd sent was already quickly claimed. I felt a belated sting of pain. Damn. Joaquin, that slick merchant. Thinking that. The person just showed up. A black Bentley weaved around a bunch of obstacles and stopped right in front of me. The driver's side window rolled down slowly, and a hand reached out, resting on the frame. The knuckles were slender and well-defined, with a watch on the porcelain white wrist. I opened the car door and got in. The car's air conditioning was on, and as soon as I stepped in, I was wrapped in warm air, carrying a faint, pleasant cool scent. You're quite the actor. That wife line gave me goosebumps. I said, glancing at the person sitting in front of me. How was it? Joaquin asked, turning his head. I thought back to the scene just now and answered, okay. My take is that spending the $100 wasn't a waste. I won't let you come out behind. Didn't expect your voice to be so distinct. One listen and I could tell it was you. That's pretty normal. His tone was casual, clearly used to this sort of thing. I couldn't help but click my tongue. So that lost, dazed look you had 2 years ago was because of him? Joaquin asked, one hand on the steering wheel, staring as he spoke with the casual curiosity of someone watching a drama unfold. I thought for a moment, more or less, but don't worry, as long as we're still legally married, I won't do anything to betray you. You've got quite the imagination. I don't care, feel free to cheat whenever you want. I leaned forward a bit, staring at Joaquin's profile. So, are we breaking up? I asked. We never got together, he said lazily. It's just that we're temporarily tied up by some little notebook. It was agreed on 2 years ago. When the time is right, we'll split. I was silent for a moment. Now, I'm afraid that's not really possible. Why? The car stopped at a red light. Joaquin shrugged. You'd think since the person you can't stop thinking about is back, you'd be the one most wanting to get free from that hold, right? Without a second thought, I shot back. Bullshit. What person I'm obsessed with? 2 years ago he humiliated me so badly, I'm not about to chase after him now. Joaquin glanced at me from the corner of his eye, about to say something, when suddenly a honk blared nearby. We both turned our heads at once. A Land Rover pulled up beside us just then. The window rolled down, and Andrew glanced over, his eyes lingering on Joaquin's face for several seconds. Finally, he glanced at me and said, "What a coincidence." I didn't bother responding. Abigail in the passenger seat gave me a brief look, then turned her gaze back to Joaquin. Long time no see. They actually know each other? I looked at Joaquin, puzzled. Joaquin thought for a moment and asked, "Have we met?" So that's how it was. Abigail hesitated, then smiled. Sorry, that was rude of me. Meanwhile, Andrew glanced at me again. I ignored him, my fingers tapping the steering wheel slightly in irritation. The light turned green, and he rolled up the window and drove off first. I breathed a sigh of relief. So weird. By the way, how do you know Abigail? Joaquin. Abigail who? Chapter 2. Joaquin and I got married, by coincidence. Really, 2 years ago, when Andrew first went abroad, I was drowning in this massive grief, wandering the streets alone. I cursed him 1,000 times over. I was so caught up in cursing that I accidentally stepped on a dog. The dog barked a few times, jolting me back to reality. I looked up and locked eyes with a handsome guy across the street, nibbling on some bread. At that moment, Joaquin lazily curled a finger around the leash, holding a piece of bread in his other hand, his mouth moving slowly as he chewed. I accidentally stepped on his dog, but he stayed calm, gently tugging the leash so the dog just ran off. I instinctively said, "Sorry, I didn't notice." He shook his head, and the next moment, a sharp shout came from behind. Joaquin pulled the dog and took off running. I reflexively followed, running until I was drenched in sweat and gasping for breath. After hiding out in a bubble tea shop, Joaquin looked less tired than me, his eyes fixed outside as he asked, "Why are you even running after me?" I was a bit stunned. My first reaction, I've been chasing after you for so long and this is what I get. My second, yeah, what exactly was I running for? I fell silent. Joaquin was speechless too. I wiped the sweat from my brow and was about to leave, but he called out, "Are you single?" I looked at him, confused. Single? What about it? Marry me. So blunt it was absurd. My refusal was immediate and clear. No. 2 million, he added. I crouched back down, flicked my hair, and said, "All right then, handsome. I can lose a lot of love in this life, but how much money can I really make?" And just like that, we became husband and wife in name only. Joaquin said he wouldn't hold me back, and when the time was right, I could leave. A deal that's guaranteed profit with zero risk. The car slowly pulled into Ushuaia Pavilion, and I froze for a moment. Isn't this where you live? Yeah. Why'd you bring me here? You're sleeping here tonight. I shot him a look, about to say something but stopped myself. The car stopped in front of the villa, and I stayed perfectly still. Joaquin lost his patience, leaned through the window, and asked, "Want me to carry you out?" I shook my head immediately. No, Joaquin. How can you go back on your word? You promised back then, and now you've just forgotten? Honestly, I never thought you were that kind of person. His face was indifferent. You just said all that, and I didn't catch a single word. Is it my IQ, or is your brain broken? I looked at him without saying a word. After a few seconds of eye contact, he caught on and squinted slightly. "Celine, do I look like someone who'll eat just anything?" I got out of the car quietly. Inside the villa, every corner was brightly lit, and every light seemed to scream money. I just stepped through the front door when someone came down the stairs, a woman in a nightgown, obviously just out of the shower, her skin pale and unbelievably beautiful. I immediately spun around and bumped straight into Joaquin. He looked up, and I gave a bitter laugh. Did I come back at the worst possible time? Am I interrupting you? Chapter 3. Joaquin glanced past me and asked, "Just by yourself?" The woman's voice was light. He's still showering upstairs on the second floor. I furrowed my brows, feeling a bit lost. A door clicked shut behind me. Joaquin looked at me calmly and said, "You sleep on the third floor, there's a bathroom up there, too." I nodded and followed him. As we passed the second floor, I heard sounds of someone bathing and couldn't help but ask, "So, you're not the only one living here? The one you just saw is my sister, Karen. She just got in tonight and is crashing with me for a night." I nodded thoughtfully and said, "Your sister's really pretty." Joaquin turned around. I hesitated, then grinned and changed my words. "Our sister's really pretty. They won't be leaving until around noon tomorrow." Joaquin led me into the room, stepped into the bathroom, fiddled with the shower head to check if it worked, and said, "You've gotta think fast. Karen's pretty sharp." I shifted the focus a bit. Why just a bit? Because I'm smarter. After my shower, I sat at the vanity and carefully took off my makeup. Someone messaged me on WeChat. It was Diego. He and Andrew were close. Even when Andrew was abroad, they kept in touch. At first, after Andrew sent me a voice message, he deleted me without waiting for my reply, probably because he was afraid Abigail would see it. I went ahead and blocked him completely, then closed off all ways for anyone to add me. Diego's message was simple, like a notification telling me to open my friend requests because someone wanted to add me. I replied, "No sugar." He replied quickly too. "Really? Then I'll say it's Andrew who wants you to have sugar." Back in school, he was always fond of using the name Andrew to get under my skin. It's the same now, even though he knows what Andrew did 2 years ago. I calmly typed back, "Even if your dad wants sugar, it's not happening." Diego was speechless. He didn't send any more messages, so I lay back down and got a good night's sleep. I'm someone who's used to my own bed, tossing and turning until about 1 in the morning before falling asleep. The next day, after washing my face, I didn't even look in the mirror. I just went downstairs with my hair all messy. When I saw Karen, neatly dressed and pouring milk downstairs, I suddenly snapped back to reality. Damn, acting like this is my own place. Karen happened to look up and catch my eye. There are a million ways for me to die, so why does it have to be from embarrassment? But Karen clearly didn't mind, just gave a faint smile. She's stunning, with sharp, striking features, like a movie star, still rocking the no makeup look. Huh? Her eyebrows and eyes kinda remind me of Joaquin's. His family really has good genes. "Come have breakfast, Celine," she said. I awkwardly brushed my hair back and pointed upstairs. "You guys go ahead, sis. I'm gonna fix my hair." "No need," she called after me. "There's some on the first floor, it's easier. I'll go grab it for you." "Aw, thanks." I felt a little flattered. At the dining table sat another man, head down reading the newspaper, not joining the conversation, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking refined and elegant. Just now, when Karen bent over to pour milk, he reached out and hooked his arm around her waist to keep her from falling. Clearly, this was Joaquin, the brother-in-law. After taking a seat, I asked, puzzled, "Where's Joaquin?" As soon as he said that, Karen and my brother-in-law looked at me together. Karen was the first to speak. "He takes a shower every morning. Didn't you know?" Damn it. How can there even be that much detail? I forced a laugh. I didn't sleep well last night. It just slipped my mind. Didn't sleep well? Karen looked down, stirring her milk with a spoon, smiling. Then he's got quite the energy. What? What kind of twisted logic is that? Tearing up. I nodded, haha. By the time the conversation got to that point, Joaquin came downstairs, completely missing what we'd been saying. He pulled out a chair, sat down, grabbed a sandwich, and took a bite. Karen took a sip of milk, then looked up and asked, "How long have you two been married again?" I was honestly a bit stunned. "A little over 2 years. Joaquin, 846 days. Impressive. Why not get so precise as to the decimal point too?" Karen nodded thoughtfully, then said, "Remember to go home sometime. My mom's been complaining you haven't been back for a while." Hearing that, I straightened my back. "Yeah, that's true." Then I turned to Joaquin and smiled gently. "Let's go back tomorrow." Joaquin nodded, then placed the peeled egg on my plate, smiling. "Have one, it's good protein." I was a bit caught off guard, looked at him with my eyes, and gently raised my eyebrows. After a moment, I took it, cleared my throat, and said, "Thanks, hubby." That move earned a pair of knowing smiles from across the table. After they left, I slumped back. "Are we really going to your place tomorrow?" Joaquin shook his head. "No need. I can handle it," I softly said. "Oh." He stood up. "Let's go. I'll walk you back." I hurried to follow. Back at the office, my colleague Laura came over excitedly and said, "Celine, good news." "What?" She smiled like a flower in bloom. "We have a new manager, and he's really handsome." "I'm not really interested." "Oh, the name sounds really nice too," Laura said with a smile, nodding. "Andrew, how do you like it?" I raised my voice. "Who?" Laura was startled by my reaction and poked me. "It's Andrew." "What's wrong? You don't like the name? Is this even about liking the name?" I rubbed my forehead, feeling hopeless. Why the sudden change for no reason? Speak of the devil. In the next moment, a low voice came from behind. "Celine." I rolled my eyes, turned around, and said, "You called?" "Andrew, come to my office," Laura whispered from the side. Damn, the more I look, the hotter he gets. Just putting on a show. Andrew stood by the desk, looking at me, then after a moment said, "Are you still upset about what happened 2 years ago?" I smiled. "Not at all. I'm not that petty." "Kelly, you and Joaquin aren't really married, are you?" he asked again, sounding a bit urgent. I looked serious. "It's real, honestly. I don't get why you keep obsessing over this." Andrew shook his head and after a moment, chuckled softly. "You're probably lying to me. Joaquin is no ordinary guy. His net worth is even listed online." "Marrying you? No chance at all." I sneered coldly. "What do you mean? You think I'm not good enough for him?" "Kelly." He called my name again softly, with that look like he was worried about me. "You know the gap between you and him well. I'm not putting you down. I'm just using reality to argue back at you," I said casually. "So what? Why argue? Who I marry is none of your damn business." Andrew was silent for several seconds. "It's my business if you don't like him. You don't actually think I still like you, do you?" he said. "The only reason I came back to China this time was because you came back. Be good, add me on WeChat first." I curled my lips. "Did you think about how Abigail would feel hearing you say that?" He paused, then said calmly, "She doesn't matter." I looked at him. "So damn pathetic. You really are so damn pathetic." Despite my blunt insult, Andrew didn't get angry. He just asked calmly, "Did Joaquin threaten you or something?" "No. I really like him. You can't fool me, Kelly." He lowered his head and smiled. But when he looked up, the laughter was completely gone from his eyes, cold and distant. "Stay away from him." "Come over here," I asked. "Are you brain dead or just naturally pathetic? Playing double personalities with me? I'm warning you. Don't freak out again, Andrew, or I won't hesitate to settle the score from the past 2 years. 2. After saying all that, I turned to leave, but Andrew suddenly grabbed my wrist hard, pulling me into his arms. "You damn." He lowered his head and covered my mouth with his fingers to silence me. Annoyed. "Celine, can you just listen for once?" After a pause, his voice softened again. "I miss you so much in America. I've been lost a few times. Don't you know? I was wrong, okay? Can you forgive me just this once? Can we start over?" Chapter 4. The moment he finished speaking, Andrew suddenly let go of me, bent over clutching his head, his body shrinking in. I was stunned for a moment, then turned around. Abigail was standing just outside the office, watching us. Not far beside her stood someone else, in front of a desk, fingers fiddling with a small slingshot on the table. Then he looked up and gave a small smile. "Joaquin." "Joaquin?" Andrew frowned at them, rubbing the back of his neck before lowering his hand, his voice colder by a notch. "Was it you who broke it?" Joaquin, still leaning lazily against the edge of the table, didn't answer but shot back. "So you're in the office, tugging and pulling on a married woman. Are you really trying to be the other woman?" I was wondering why Joaquin showed up here, but I pretty much guessed it was because of Abigail. Andrew glared at him coldly. You really think I'm that easy to fool? Joaquin paused, his gaze circling Andrew's forehead twice. Are you seriously out of your mind? Insults aren't the scary part. The scary part is that Joaquin's tone is way too damn sincere. Like he actually cares about Andrew's brain. Andrew was clearly about to lose it. He took a deep breath, then sneered. Master Bai's way too bored and should find something to do. You're an outsider and not fit to be here. Since you're young, I won't hold that little stunt against you. Now, please leave. Between the two, Andrew was definitely older. He's 2 whole years older than Joaquin. And so am I. That was back when we were freshmen and Joaquin was still a junior in high school. Hearing that, Joaquin raised his slingshot at him again. Andrew raised his hand instinctively to block. Joaquin lowered his head and chuckled happily, then gently tossed the slingshot aside, stood up, and tilted his chin at me. Come out here for a moment. At his words, I stepped forward. Andrew reached out to pull me back. I quickly dodged and calmly reminded him, watch the distance. Passing by Abigail, she gave me a quick smile. Joaquin stood by the company front desk and pushed a bag toward me. I looked at him suspiciously. My mom made it for you. I nodded knowingly, then said, did Auntie ask why I didn't go? She did. I told her you were busy with work, so she spent 15 minutes putting together this lunchbox for you. I couldn't help but smile quietly. Joaquin then said, if you're fed up with your current situation, you can always come to the Bai family. His words caught me off guard for a moment, but I shook my head and declined. No thanks. I can handle it. He said nothing more, just nodded and walked off briskly. I watched his back, feeling a little bittersweet. Joaquin has this naturally superior look. I used to think the best-looking guy I'd ever seen was Andrew. Until I met Joaquin, then I realized there's always someone better out there. Even the mole on Joaquin's chin totally smokes Andrew. I'm not kidding. He's never short of admirers. In their circle, he's considered the most capable, even though these past couple of years our sham marriage has basically built a wall around his chances. I've still seen women make the first move on him. A while back Joaquin suddenly told me the timing was right. I guess he finally woke up and figured he's wasting his prime years. He can't just build a bridge across this waterway for me alone. I thought it over, and in the end decided I really shouldn't keep him waiting. After work, I got home, took a shower, wrapped a towel around my head, sat on the couch chewing a fry, remote in hand, looking for a show to watch. After scanning through for a while, I clicked on a variety show just as my phone on the coffee table buzzed once. The thing people probably want most in life is a regret cure, like right now. I'm kicking myself for not putting my phone on Do Not Disturb just at the moment when my mind and body finally relax. I paused the variety show and reluctantly grabbed my phone. It was a text message. It's Andrew. Great. Just what I needed, more annoyance. I was debating whether to tell him to get lost or block him when the second message came right after. I thought it over for a long time and figured out why you're so angry. Is it because you blame me for going abroad with Abigail? I was too impulsive back then, but later realized that you were the first person I thought of while I was away. I snorted and typed back. I still remember what you said the night you got back. About 2 minutes later, I'm just testing your attitude. Celi, we can take our time and work through all these things you're worried about. No need to fix it. I just don't care anymore. Why? Do you think the outcome's pretty much the same? You and Abigail are actually quite similar in some ways. I replied, not at all. He responded with a question mark. She's Abigail. I'm your dad. Andrew didn't reply after that, mainly because I lost patience waiting and just blocked him. I spent all 4 years of college shadowing Andrew. So to those who knew us well, I was the sidekick, the bootlicker, Andrew's personal bootlicker. Back then, I used to wonder why no one would say I was truly devoted. Okay, truth be told, I wasn't really all that devoted either. There's a reason I stayed by his side. And if I told it, even death would shed tears. Andrew and I met in our first year of high school. My first impression of him was that he had a decent face but seemed pretty gloomy. Actually, he really was gloomy. His grandfather had been bedridden for years, not expected to live much longer, and Andrew was closest to him. My family lived close to his, so sometimes when I had free time, I'd go with Andrew to visit his grandfather. In the last 3 months of senior year crunch time, Andrew started dating a girl from our class. One Friday, the girl pouted and begged him to go shopping with her. So Andrew had no choice but to ask me to head to the hospital first. I kept trying to think of an excuse, but the moment I arrived, Andrew's grandfather saw right through it. He said he knew his grandson was in love. When Andrew sat by his bedside, he often got distracted and sometimes even smiled foolishly. I felt a bit conflicted. Grandpa, he'll be here any minute now. Grandpa cut me off, his voice weak but forcing out a smile. Grandpa's too tired now. Celine, you're a good girl. Andrew, he's the one in the family I worry about the most, Andrew. So Grandpa hopes that after I'm gone, you'll keep him company, watch over him, and make sure he doesn't stray at crucial moments, okay? I nodded solemnly. Andrew arrived 20 minutes later, then knelt by the hospital bed for a long time, his face stone cold as he cried. You could tell he was full of regret because he'd broken up with that girl. The girl was clinging to him, sobbing her heart out. Andrew, but he seemed to suddenly harden his heart, completely unmoved. I was there too, so the rumor shifted to that I had stirred things up and caused both breakups. Later on, Andrew and I got into the same university. By then, he'd been listening to his shady friends and had started suspecting I had feelings for him. I couldn't be bothered to explain, since my mission was basically complete. Right now, I'm annoyed with him to death. That is, until I met Abigail. Pretty, gentle Abigail, no guy wouldn't like her, Andrew included. I felt somewhat relieved. Now Andrew would definitely use chasing Abigail and keeping distance from the opposite sex as an excuse to cut me off. After all, in his and his friends' eyes, I was the one pining for him for years, willingly, without any response. By then, I was utterly heartbroken, coldly walking away. I really thought it was perfect. But reality always has its surprises. Andrew, counting on his looks and his temper, openly chased Abigail for ages. But he got rejected. He was really upset at the time, went out drinking, and got so drunk he passed out. When I answered the phone, I was short-tempered and still grouchy from just waking up, my head about to explode with annoyance, nearly wanting to smash the bottle to wake him. Are you crazy? Drinking that much? Even if you're drinking, why call only me when you know a ton of people? Do you just want to keep me awake on purpose? My tone was pretty impatient, so when Andrew looked up, confused, and asked, "How long have you liked me?" I was totally baffled. He nodded. Then let's make it official. Did he really think I came to confess to him? I glanced at the bottle on the table, wondering if this counted as intentional harm, but since he was drunk like an idiot and I aspired to be decent, I let him off. I never expected Andrew to wake up the next day and loudly announce our relationship on social media. I was out cold at the time. When I woke up, my messages were flooded with, "Congratulations. Hope you get what you want. Wishing you all the best," and things like that. I turned to Andrew's chat and hammered out a little essay that was 99% baby mama vibes. Before I could even hit send, my boss called me with an urgent phone call. "Celine, are you trying to forego your paycheck? Money troubles can bring down even a hero." I swallowed my pride and rushed to the office. At work, I seriously replayed everything in my head, thinking that since we at least knew each other, I'd give him some face, play along for now, and break up in a couple days, using incompatibility as the reason. But Andrew was even more cunning than I was. When he found out Abigail was going abroad, he didn't hesitate and just followed her. So, I was the one who got the raw end of the deal. The real bootlicker was actually Andrew. Basically, I was forced to announce it publicly and then dumped. My decency tells me I should curse Andrew with the nastiest words imaginable. But reason tells me it's no big deal, at least you got rid of him. But who the hell expected that 2 years later he'd come back? And not just that, he actually showed up in front of me looking for attention. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. So when Joaquin called, I instinctively said, "Spit it out." There was a brief silence over there before someone's voice chimed in with a laugh. "Looks like you're under strict wife control." I lowered my voice. Would you believe me if I said those few words just now were actually meant for my dog? Seriously, my cherry is adorably gassy. "Joaquin, are you nuts? How do you even curse at someone?" he said again. "Get ready. I'll come pick you up later." Oh, I nodded, then paused and asked, "Why are you picking me up?" "To go to my parents' place." His tone was flat. I thought about it for a moment and said, All right. Then I quickly changed, put on some light makeup, and turned off the TV I hadn't even started watching. Joaquin arrived fast, and the first thing I asked when I got in the car was why we were suddenly headed out. It's my mom's birthday today. I opened my mouth, clicked my tongue, and said, "That's not right. Even if we're not actually together, at least it looks like it to everyone else. You don't invite me on such an important day like your mom's birthday? Do you know how people on your side will gossip about me?" I gave a thumbs up and said, "Rude, disrespectful, cold," and then they go straight to suspecting our whole thing's just a sham marriage. Joaquin tilted his head and said, "Aren't you the one who claimed you don't care what others say about you?" It all started with something I said casually 2 years ago. Back then, Joaquin took me to meet his parents for the first time. That's where I met a little girl named Eli, and we hit it off really well during the whole visit. She told me she's been pretty stressed lately because her parents want her to learn certain things. Otherwise, compared to other girls, she'd be embarrassed. But she isn't interested in any of it. I said, "If you don't like it, then don't do it." But then all those uncles and aunts would gossip about me. Doesn't matter. Whatever irrelevant people say, their spit is just bacteria to you. Just splash some disinfectant on their faces. Eli looked at me admiringly. Second sister-in-law. I really wish I could be as cool as you. Pulling my thoughts back, I cleared my throat lightly. Times have changed. Now I have to earn some merit for myself. Chapter 5. The car easily turned the corner and stopped in front of 2 green plants. I took a deep breath. "You nervous?" Joaquin asked. I shook my head. "Just a warm-up move." Right after I got out of the car, someone was standing at the door waving at me. I stared at the vaguely familiar face and tugged on Joaquin's hand. "Who is this?" Joaquin looked that way and said, "The one you were chatting with most last time." "Oh, this girl's really grown fast. She's way taller now." I smiled as I walked over, and Eli linked arms with me warmly. "Second sister-in-law. Long time no see. Do you still remember me?" I silently thanked Joaquin 100 times, then replied, "Of course I remember. You've grown so much." Eli pressed her lips into a smile, then said, "Let's go. The uncles are waiting for you inside." The room was crowded. Besides Bai's father and mother, Karen was sitting nearby. I barely recognized her smile. "Celine." Bai's mother waved at me with a smile. "Long time no see. Joaquin said you've been busy. Come sit down and chat with me." The only thought on my mind as I moved forward was that fake weddings really are deadly. My social skills are terrible, but my acting is top-notch. My mom used to nag me about why she never sent me into showbiz. Halfway through, they brought out the cake to cut, and Joaquin sat across the table listening to everyone else's conversation. He rested his elbow on his knee, leaning forward slightly, while the friend beside him chatted and laughed with him. He rarely smiled, took a sip of the juice in front of him, then kept holding the glass, listening intently while gently swaying it. The black watch on his wrist made his skin look even paler, radiating luxury. I wanted to use the restroom halfway through. Eli took me there, and on the way back, someone called out to her. I glanced at her, an unfamiliar face, about the same age as Eli. She was dressed nicely. With a haughty tone, "Eli, what's with you skulking around all day? It's really embarrassing." At that, Eli tightened her grip on me. I figured she was just looking for trouble and asked, "What do you mean? Embarrassing?" She's embarrassing from head to toe." The girl held her wine glass and came over with a light laugh. I reached out and held her hand before she could do anything. "Girl?" I sighed. "Seriously, kid, what era do you think this is? That cheesy soap opera move's way outdated. What exactly are you doing?" Her face stiffened as she tipped back the glass to finish the last of the juice, sneering, "I'm not that boring. If you say so, then it must be true." I took Eli's hand and left. Second sister-in-law. Eli's voice was still soft. "Thank you. What's there to thank me for? Seriously, I've realized you're completely useless. Can't have such a soft personality. Little girl, you're easy to push around," she said quietly. Bai Xian is the favorite child in every family. My mom likes her too. I'm kind of afraid of her. I looked at her with a mix of frustration and disbelief. What's there to be afraid of? It's mainly because your mom likes her too, right? But no matter how much she likes her, It's nothing compared to you being her own child. Are you carrying some kind of shadow your mom left on you? She was pretty down but nodded at what I said. Yeah. My mom puts a lot of pressure on me. She controls everything I say and do, can't mess up even a little. I frowned. What kind of suffocating upbringing is this? Second sister-in-law. Is your mom like that too? I shook my head. My mom often says I'm a punishment sent from heaven to her. Eli laughed and said, looks like Auntie's pretty fed up with you most of the time. That's definitely true. I remembered the last time I fought with Miss Wu was 2 months ago. Over the whole dating thing. I didn't tell her about Joaquin and me, because with her mindset, she'd tear me to shreds and cook me every which way. At the time, there was a suitor who kept coming to my house every day trying to win me over. My mom really liked him and kept lecturing me, but I firmly shot him down. She got so mad she started tearing into me, everything from my personality flaws to how I handled the housework. My mom said, with you acting like this, it's no wonder they don't like you. Honestly, it's more like they don't like you. I bent down to look for something. Not bothered, I don't need him to like me. And I never said I didn't like them. I just simply don't. My mom said, at this rate, no man will ever like you. Thanks for the kind words. Get lost is shouted like a roar. Sigh. My own unique logic just doesn't make sense to my mom. Of course. I never planned to make her understand either. Lost in thought, I gulped down the big glass of wine, and the sharp taste in my mouth suddenly snapped me back to reality. Eli stared blankly at me. Second sister-in-law. What you're drinking is alcohol. I know. I, Celine, have lived over 20 years without losing. But tonight, I lost to a glass of wine. Joaquin took me from Eli's arms and stared at me for 2 seconds. Your tolerance is this low? I looked up at him and laughed softly. Hey there, handsome. First time meeting you. Mind if I get your number? Someone spoke behind me, but I didn't catch it clearly. So I quietly leaned against Joaquin's chest and was then lifted up into his arms. He carried me out of the villa. A cold wind blew, and I curled up closer in his arms, mumbling, it's cold. Really, even a stepmother wouldn't treat me like this. Joaquin carried me toward the car. Wow, I've turned into your mom. You were my mom to begin with. I mumbled back. Half asleep, he gently set me down in the passenger seat, then leaned down to buckle my seatbelt. The scent on him smelled better the more I noticed it. Mom, what perfume are you wearing? Joaquin, with his lashes still drooping, said, just bought it online. Oh, I quietly went back to sleep. Halfway through, feeling cold and a bit thirsty, I said, why didn't you cover me with a blanket? I want some water. The car was steady as it drove. Joaquin said, right away. Right away. During that time, I dozed off again, half in a haze, until he carried me out of the car. I shifted my position, wrapping my arms around Joaquin's neck like an octopus clinging to him. He stumbled a bit but caught himself just in time, expressionless as he reached to touch the switch on the wall. Before he could touch it, my body tilted, and Joaquin was caught off guard, pressed up against the wall behind him. Half my hair spilled over his shoulder. If it were me, I'd be about to lose it in this situation, but Joaquin wasn't. He had a great personality, a rare kind of laid-back, zen vibe. His face usually gives off this impression that it's been played around with a lot. But that's really just an illusion. I couldn't help but wiggle a little on him, my face twitching, and Joaquin said immediately, if you kiss me, I'll toss you out of here. As he said that, my lips brushed against his neck. I curled up in his arms. It's so cold. Mom, hurry up and cover me with a blanket. While saying that, I reached out to tug on Joaquin's jacket. Without a word, he grabbed my hand and headed straight to the bedroom. The lights weren't even on yet, and he just laid me down on the bed. I clung to the tail of his jacket and fell sound asleep. Joaquin reached out and tugged, but couldn't budge it. Are you really asleep or just faking it? How can someone so out of it have that much strength? I couldn't make out what he was muttering, but I knew someone was trying to steal my money. They want to steal my money. You might as well kill me. Chapter 6. When I woke up, my head was pounding. I grimaced and rubbed it, then ran a hand through my hair, my eyes drifting around the room. Is this Joaquin's place? I took a sharp breath, trying to remember what happened last night, But sadly, nothing came to mind. When I got out of bed, I noticed a tiny silver chain tooth on the floor next to the slippers. I instinctively squinted. My clothes don't have zippers, so that wouldn't happen. It can't possibly be Joaquin's, right? As I left the room, Joaquin was sitting at the dining table, holding a small knife and slicing toast, slice after slice. It made me inexplicably uneasy. "Good morning," I greeted first. Joaquin looked up, stuck the knife tip into a slice, and offered it to me. I quickly pulled back, waving my hand. No, I can manage myself. You're awake. Huh? Not easy. He said it, then took it back, nibbling on a small bite. So sarcastic. Absolutely sarcastic. I pulled out a chair and sat down, testing the waters. I didn't do anything last night, right? Joaquin lowered his head to slice the toast, shaking it in response. No. I let out half my tension in one breath. He went on. Just spent half the night calling me mom. That's all. I set down my chopsticks, swallowing the sting of humiliation hard, and said coldly, "Let's get a divorce right now. We'll head to the Civil Affairs Bureau immediately." Joaquin looked up at me and nodded firmly. All right. I stared at the plate, silently swearing 1,000 times that if I touched wine again, I'd die to make up for it. But the divorce didn't happen, because we both got a call at the same time, and after hanging up, we exchanged a glance across the table, perfectly in sync. Some other day. Okay. Andrew stopped me at work. He had a faint blue stubble along his chin and looked a bit run down. "Kelly, can you be with me today?" I tried to pull away, but he grabbed my wrist, saying, "Come with me to see Grandpa." He stopped in his tracks because of that sentence. I turned around, pulled my hand back, and said flatly, "Andrew, you might not be all that great, but at least you've still got some conscience. You can go on your own. We're over now, and stop touching me every 5 seconds. I could actually sue you for sexual harassment at this point." Andrew's eyes landed on my face. Complicated. After a long moment, he let out a hoarse laugh and shook his head. "Kelly, you've really changed." I nodded. "Yeah. I'm not the Celine you used to know anymore, so don't come bothering me again." As we pulled apart, he stubbornly asked again, "Are you really married to Joaquin?" "We're done. We're true love. The kind that never separates through lifetimes." "Okay." After work, I took Cherry to the pet store for a bath. When I finished washing him and was leaving the store, I ran into Abigail. She had a bag slung over one shoulder and smiled at me. "See you again." I nodded politely, ready to walk past her, but Abigail called out, "Celine, that's your name, right?" I nodded. "Yes." "Do you really dislike me?" she asked. "Not really. There's nothing between me and Andrew." She looked at me seriously and explained, "Even during those 2 years abroad, we never confirmed a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. He was always the one chasing me. TSK. Being a bootlicker to this degree isn't something just anyone can manage." I raised my eyebrows slightly. "So? I just want you to be clear, Andrew has actually always liked you." She curved her lips into a faint smile as she said, "Maybe you find that strange. Because I do too. I don't get what goes on in these guys' heads. How can they be so dumb not to even know who they really like?" "That's exactly what I thought." "So," Abigail smiled gently, "I hope you're not misunderstanding. Also, I'm surprised about you and Joaquin." I looked at her. She lowered her lashes. "Joaquin and I went to the same university once. Our only connection is that we took the same class. He was insanely popular at our school back then, like, you wouldn't believe it. Every day, he'd be the subject of countless confession posts on the wall. I've never cared about basketball, but I'd still make time every day just to walk by the court to see him. He was great at basketball, could do everything, but flirting with girls? Nope. Not his thing. Every day, I'd spot him in all kinds of reposted photos. Some blurry, some clear, but the odds of actually running into him were ridiculously slim. Speaking of which, she smiled and said, "Back then, I felt this itch in my heart every day, like he was the kind of big star who only shows up on your phone but has nothing to do with your real life." I listened and suddenly it all clicked. No wonder Abigail looked down on Andrew. It turned out she'd already met Joaquin. In her youth, he was probably a presence like no other. Thinking that, my mood suddenly got a bit complicated. I wanted to say that Joaquin and I were about to break up, that we were basically a dead relationship, and that she could boldly go after him then. But Abigail cut me off before I could say a word and gently said, "You and him really do make a good match. Celine, has anyone ever told you you're really pretty?" I was a little stunned, thought for a moment, then said, "Yes, but not many," because at that time, I gave off the impression of being a total bootlicker. Abigail looked surprised. Could it be that my taste is just a bit niche? No, your taste is pretty mainstream. Because I'm absolutely sure I'm a beauty. Abigail glanced at her phone, then suddenly asked, "A friend invited me to play pool. Want to come along and hang out?" "No thanks," I gently declined, giving the cherry in my arms a little shake. "I need to take this little guy home." Abigail seemed to notice it for the first time. Laughed in surprise. "It's so cute. I love it. How about we go anyway? That way I can hold it for a bit." Whenever someone praises Cherry, I tend to get carried away. When I'm in that mood, I'm the easiest to talk to. So I agreed. Of course. The main reason was that Abigail's smile was just too beautiful and gentle. I couldn't say no. If there were a machine to measure how much someone likes boys or girls, mine would probably be about 80% for girls. I rarely go to entertainment venues. When Abigail led me there, I looked up and saw a big, bright one character hanging there. 8-day week. The name's unusual, and the place is pretty upscale. Inside, it was crowded. Almost every table was taken, with the clack of billiard balls and the collision of pool tables echoing around. Cherry was squirming in my arms, so I gently patted its head, careful to avoid the people nearby who were focused on playing ball. Walking to the middle of the court, Abigail waved to greet her friends, then turned back to pull me along. "Who's this?" her friend asked. Abigail replied, "My friend. Just came along for fun." I smiled politely. Abigail didn't start playing right away. Instead, she took Cherry from my arms and teased it for a while. After she'd had enough, she glanced at her friend and said, "Why don't you guys head up to the second floor? It feels too crowded down here on the first floor, and I keep catching whiffs of sweat." "The second floor's pretty full too," her friend said. "I heard some big shots there. He's taken up half the space." TCH. Having money just means you get to be spoiled. But if I had money, I'd be just as spoiled. Halfway through, I suddenly had to pee. The first floor was crowded, and there wasn't a single free stall in the bathroom, so I had to go upstairs to the second floor. My mom once said the best thing I ever did was crash someone else's party. Maybe that's a prophecy woven through my life, because just before I went into the bathroom, I happened to catch a glimpse of something. A woman was bent over, hitting a ball, while the man beside her chatted and laughed with someone nearby, casually resting his hand on her lower back, and then slowly sliding down. It was really loud inside. All kinds of noises. No one was paying any attention here. After being offended, the woman just turned away with a blank face, and the man kept following slowly behind. That's when I threw the purse I was holding. The aim was good. The man cursed. The move caught everyone's attention, and things quieted down a bit. All eyes swung over here and landed on me. "Are you fucking kidding me?" the guy I hit spat out. My poor purse lay on the ground. A woman picked it up. She tried to hand it back to me, but the man shoved her aside and started walking toward me. When he was about 3 steps away from me, I stayed pretty calm. After taking a step closer, I slapped him. He was completely stunned. The place fell eerily silent, and the way people looked at me was like I was some reckless lunatic. But I twitched my fingers, shocked by my own impulsive move. I once went through a phase of being a Chinibyo girl. Back then, after watching too many martial arts movies, I often imagined myself as a female swordsman taking down all the villains. But I knew the reality, men were way stronger, so my mind raced. If he hit me, should I just lie down and squeeze a few million out of him? Or should I go on the offensive, kick him in the crotch, and run? But my plan hadn't even started when a voice cut in. "Ignacio." "Joaquin." That's when I noticed Joaquin was here too. He was all the way in the back, holding a cue stick, his head slightly turned this way. There were quite a few people around him, both men and women. The guys were smoking, just there to watch. A few women raised their hands, looking a bit surprised. What caught my eye was how gorgeous their manicures were. Oh. Ignacio was clearly calling out to the sleazy guy right in front of me. He wore a yellow vest, his arms covered from shoulder to wrist in big tattoos. He looked pretty fierce, like an old-school gangster. Right now, she's staring at me like I'm dead. Honestly, when I first noticed Joaquin, I felt a little guilty. When Ignacio was called out by Joaquin, the anger in his eyes softened a lot, but his voice was still sneering. Apologize to me. I'm not apologizing to an idiot, I said. Joaquin started walking over this way. Ignacio laughed bitterly at my comment, not feeling embarrassed at all. After laughing, he said in a harsh tone, "You know I've been to jail, right? Wanna know what got me locked up?" I didn't give him the scared look he was expecting, because it was the first time I'd seen someone so blatantly flashing their dirty secrets around like precious trophies. So I replied flatly, "Just did something doomed to bring down heaven's wrath." Joaquin showed up, quelled Ignacio's anger with a look, and Ignacio just swallowed his pride and turned away. I cleared my throat. What a coincidence. "You here to play pool too?" Joaquin said. "I'm here to play. You here to start a fight?" His question brought the urge to pee right back, and I laughed. "Would you believe me if I said I'm just here for the bathroom?" Abigail came up just then. "Celine, why haven't you come down for so long?" Her voice suddenly cut off. The moment I saw Joaquin, I turned and rushed to the bathroom. When I came out again, the second floor had already gone back to its usual mood. As if nothing had happened, Abigail was holding my bag, her eyes fixed on the people inside. I walked right up to her without her noticing. "Abigail," I called softly. She finally snapped out of it, still staring that way, and quietly said, "So the exclusive booking they were talking about is actually Joaquin. Are you planning to stay here then?" I shook my head. "No. He does his thing. I do mine." Saying that, I tilted my head to look. Joaquin still stood out in the bustling crowd, now bending down to prepare for a shot. Someone handed him a cigarette from the side, but he shook his head and declined. Then he smoothly took the shot. I was too far off to see clearly, but from the whistles and applause breaking out around me, I guessed it must have been a great shot. Joaquin remained effortlessly calm, standing straight. Even just his profile was 1 in a million. Every feature from brow to nose was flawless. Smoke swirling thickly around him, slowly drifting closer. He didn't mind, one hand gripping the club, the other casually tapping on his phone. After knocking, I put my phone down and bent over again. At that moment, my phone buzzed in my bag. A message from 2 seconds ago. "Wait for me." Chapter 7. Abigail and the others left first. I held Cherry and waited for Joaquin on the first floor. Nearly 10:30. People started trickling down from the second floor. No one noticed me. Joaquin walked at the very end, but he was the first to look straight at me before whispering something to the person beside him. The others left the billiards hall, and Joaquin changed direction to come over, snagging a bottle of drink from the front desk as he passed. He bent his index finger slightly to pull the tab open, took a sip, and continued toward me. I tilted his chin up and said, "Honey, did you make me wait just to personally see me home?" That honey made him pause for a moment. He looked at me and said, "You flirt without even blushing." I don't think this counts as flirting. I stood up, hugged the sleeping Cherry, and started to walk out. Joaquin was behind me. A staff member inside called him over. They seemed pretty familiar, and the guy smiled and tossed out something in dialect. I didn't understand, but Joaquin did. After listening, he twitched the corner of his mouth, pulled out his car keys, and carried on walking out alone. "No," I called after him. "What did that staff member just say?" "Said you're too aggressive." I smiled at him. "You really think I believe that?" He replied slowly, "Only I know the answer. If you ask, you just have to trust me." After saying that, he started the car. A breeze slipped in through the window gap, tousling the stray hairs on my forehead. I leaned back and pressed the window control button, shutting out the wind from outside. So tired. If I weren't so easygoing about Abigail, I'd probably be home lying down right now. Never saw that coming. "What do you mean you didn't notice? You talk too much." I raised my hand to rest my cheek and said casually, "That guy was asking for it from the start. You don't even know what he just did." Throwing my bag was the mildest thing. Joaquin was driving smoothly, then asked, "No matter what he does, have you ever thought about whether you're going in with the upper hand or at a disadvantage before you make a move?" I paused for a moment, squinting slightly. I do tend to act on impulse, so my mom says she wouldn't be surprised if I ever ended up in jail. Did Auntie really say that? Nothing else? No. He chuckled twice and said, "It's pretty impressive that you've made it this far unharmed." The car stopped at Yushui Pavilion. After I got out of the car holding the sleeping Cherry, the nanny Sandra had just taken out the trash. She pulled me a couple of steps forward and lowered her voice. "Madam, I need to tell you something." "You say." "Sandra." Sandra fumbled in her pocket for a long time before pulling out a crumpled scrap of paper and handing it to me. I struggled for a while to make it out before I could clearly see what the note said. "Handsome guy. Add me on WeChat, QI5XXXX. Madam." This was left by a woman who visited our home a few days ago. "I don't know if you've been in contact with her, sir, but I trust your character. I just thought I should mention it to you." I curved my lips and said, "Got it. It's late. You should get some rest." Sigh. Heading upstairs, Joaquin happened to come out of the bathroom, pulling on a t-shirt. His lean, nice waist and stomach exposed. Water droplets still clung to his abs. His skin was pale and smooth, leaning against the doorframe. I tilted my head. Handsome guy's got quite a body. No wonder anyone who visits your place leaves spellbound. Joaquin looked utterly bewildered. He glanced at me while getting dressed. His short hair half dry, half wet, with a small widow's peak on his forehead that really stood out. That face, I low-key had a crush on him all through high school. 3 whole years. He stood there for ages, clearly clueless, then muttered, "What's your problem?" I smiled quietly and said, "Joaquin, you've probably got loads of people trying to flirt with you." He gave a lazy, indifferent rubbing his hair. "What? You jealous?" After a 2-second silence, I spoke up again. "Do you think I'm pretty?" He focused on drying his hair, glanced over when he heard me, and said, "Not bad." That caught me off guard. Sounds like a reluctant compliment. He didn't reply, just let out a breathy laugh loaded with meaning, then walked around me and headed downstairs. I watched his back and punched the air from afar. After my shower, I noticed the light downstairs was still on. Sandra must be resting, so Joaquin's still awake. I threw on a jacket and went downstairs. The kitchen noises got clearer the closer I came, carrying a faint scent. "Joaquin." Someone responded. I pushed the door open into the kitchen and saw him in pajamas, stirring something in a bowl with chopsticks. Then he switched off the induction stove and fished some noodles out of it. "Those noodles smell amazing." I couldn't help but lean in to sniff, then shot him a surprised look. "You actually know how to cook." "If I couldn't cook, do you think I'd have made it this far?" He held the bowl and looked at me. I turned back, pulled out a chair, and sat down, teasing, "I always thought someone like you grew up with a nanny glued to his side." He pulled out a chair and sat across from me. "You're overthinking it. My dad raised me like he found me on the street." I had nothing left to say. "Want some?" He picked up a chopstick. The smell of scallions hit my nose. I swallowed, tucked my hair back, and leaned in. I tilted my head slightly to avoid touching the chopsticks, but eating like that was clearly a bit awkward. After the noodles entered my mouth, I grabbed a tissue to wipe my lips and murmured, "I must have looked really awful just now." Not bad. Chapter 8. On Thursday, the manager switched staff again. Apparently, Andrew handed in his resignation voluntarily, and his leaving drew sighs of regret from several female colleagues. I was the only one cheering, quietly throwing a private party in my head. But Andrew never really gave up. The same drive he had chasing Abigail back then seemed to flare up again. He'd always text me endlessly from mysterious numbers late at night, or wait for me downstairs. I ignored the messages and didn't respond to him. After a few days, I moved in with Joaquin and finally found some peace. On the weekend, with both days off, I slept in naturally. When I woke up, I saw that Cherry had stolen my Moments post. I cursed under my breath as I chased after him down the stairs. This guy was full of energy today, stubbornly holding onto his cigarette as he ran half a lap around Yushui Pavilion. I just noticed there's a private swimming pool over on the back hill. The sun was strong today, Casting a patch of light over the pool water, it looked pretty shimmering. At the same time, Joaquin was sitting in a wicker chair in casual clothes, chatting with someone. The noise nearby caught his attention. He glanced back, wearing a coffee-colored flat cap, half his face in shadow, with only his deep red lips and sharply defined chin showing. I caught Celi and pulled her back into my arms, warning her not to move. Then I tugged at my hair tie, slowly smoothing my hair with my fingers. What a beautiful girl. That voice made me look up. The man next to Joaquin, wearing sunglasses and grinning, said, "Hey beautiful, what are you doing here?" Joaquin answered for me. "Strange, isn't it?" "Of course it's strange." The man lightly patted Joaquin on the shoulder. "When have you ever had a pretty girl here? Is she your cousin?" As he finished speaking, I had just finished tying my hair. I lifted Celi and prepared to watch Joaquin's response like it was a show. Joaquin didn't say a word. The guy tilted his head, trying to flirt. "Hey there, beautiful. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mickey. Think I'm handsome?" He was wearing a white tank top. His sun-kissed skin looked healthy, and a silver chain hung around his neck. Joaquin kept his head down, silent, probably waiting to see how I'd react. The front row seat suddenly shifted. He rested his elbow on his knee, a watch on his wrist, and a string of black beads. His hand swung lazily, the beads occasionally bumping the watch. I curled my lips. "Pretty handsome, but not my type." Mickey grinned slyly. "Come on, I think we'd make quite a pair." Joaquin turned his head to look at him, the line of his neck leading to his jaw, shifting just enough to reveal a nice curve. "So, do you think she and I are a good match?" he asked. Mickey eyed the two of us up and down, then said, "Why are you even asking? She can't possibly be your girlfriend. If not, then why is she at my place?" He had no reply, stayed silent for a few seconds, then gave a thumbs up. "Joaquin, you're the man. Staying cool while I've been teasing you all this time." Joaquin, calm and collected. "That doesn't matter. Let it hang there." "What?" He turned his head. "She's not my girlfriend," Joaquin said, word by word. "She's the other half on my marriage certificate." I paused, my fingers tapping my arm, caught Mickey's shocked look, and smiled. He hesitated for a few seconds, probably feeling like he'd made things awkward, or maybe just had to process too much at once. He rubbed the back of his neck, stood up, and left with, "I'm going home." After he left, I turned to watch the distant, drifting clouds. "Why'd you tell him?" "We broke up later anyway. That should be explanation enough for you." Joaquin didn't answer, then asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" That question threw me off a bit. "Pretty well. Yeah." "Why?" "Nothing." He rubbed his brow, stood up, and walked past me. Celi called softly, hurried after him, weaving persistently around his legs. I frowned, completely baffled. It was a gray, rainy Thursday when Ms. Wu called and asked me to come home for dinner. I was opening a box of cookies, took one out, popped it in my mouth, and asked casually, "What's got you calling me home all of a sudden?" She laughed from over there. "What else could it be? It's your dad and my anniversary. We made a whole table of food. Hurry back, or we won't be able to finish it." I glanced up at the window, raindrops clinging to the glass. "Okay, got it. Joaquin isn't here today. His dad took him out for some socializing." I sent him a message, then said goodbye to Sandra and went out to hail a cab, holding my umbrella. The sky darkened, the rainy night was chilly, and the city lights shone brightly everywhere. We stopped at the intersection with the green light. I stared out the window as pedestrians holding umbrellas stood close together, waiting in silence. Only a few familiar heads leaned together, quietly chatting. There were even some high school students among them. The boy was half a head taller than the girl, holding the umbrella so it tilted toward her. She looked up to talk to him, and he listened intently, smiling now and then. After listening, he turned to her and spoke, and she immediately gave his shoulder a quick pat. The green light came on, and people began crossing the street one after another. I looked away. By the time I got home, the rain hadn't let up at all. As soon as I walked in, my coat damp with moisture, my mom came out from the kitchen carrying the last dish and reminded me, "Don't forget to change your slippers." I tucked my hair behind my ears. Yeah, I know. At the dinner table, my mom launched into a half-hour lecture about how I'm 26 and still haven't been in a relationship. Then she nudged my dad with her elbow. Ben, are you mute? My dad gave her a reproachful look. The emperor isn't worried. But the eunuch is. Why are you concerned about young people's business? Celine not having someone she likes is totally normal. My daughter's so beautiful. There's no way she'd just throw herself at some lousy guys. If she never marries, I'll support her myself. Before I could even feel touched, my mom broke the mood. She pinched my dad's ear and raised her voice an octave. Who the hell are you calling a eunuch? I chuckled silently to myself and took a bite of food. Around 10. The two couldn't stay up any longer and went back to their rooms to sleep. After reminding me about a few things, they finally left. After washing the dishes, I got ready to take out the trash. I glanced outside, the rain had stopped, and quickly changed my shoes. The public trash bin downstairs was already full, so I had to detour to the vegetable market to throw it away. The street was mostly empty. Every now and then, a car would speed past. The more I walked, the more unsettled I felt, like someone was following me. But when I looked back, there was nothing there. As I passed through an alley, a sudden hard shove pushed me inside. The trash bag flew out violently, and I braced myself against the wall. Hurt so badly I couldn't speak. Footsteps drew closer. I turned around and locked eyes with a pair of cold, mocking ones. Ignacio. I took a sharp breath and flicked my wrist. It's really not easy squatting down to your level. He bent slightly and said, after holding my gaze for 2 seconds, smiling, why so quiet now? Keep going. I didn't respond. Inside, I felt pretty desperate. This alley was long and dark, like it had no end. I had to think fast. My eyes fixed on Ignacio. He's way taller than me, looking down at me. Then the next second, he raised his hand to slap me. I dodged quickly, but that only pissed him off. He grabbed my collar with one hand and slammed me against the wall. Where the hell do you think you're dodging to? He sneered coldly. You really think you can get away tonight? I caught my breath and laughed. You want to kill me? People have wanted to kill me all my life. Why don't you be the first? He leaned in, his breath brushing my whole face, then slapped my cheek hard with his big hand. Oh, you really think I wouldn't dare? This face is pretty nice. Let me give you a couple of kisses, I'll make you feel better. I turned my face slightly. Ignacio leaned in, but before he could touch me, I suddenly slammed my forehead into his. Shit. He took a step back, and without hesitation, I kicked at him below, but just as my leg extended, he grabbed my ankle. I slapped him square across the face, and as he loosened his grip for a moment, I pushed him away forcefully. Ignacio reached out, grabbed the collar of my shirt, pulled me down, and casually cursed. Fuck your mom. I slapped his face aside. Try insulting me again? He rolled over, and I was thrown to the ground, taking a solid slap in return. No shame. Huh? Fine. Watch how I deal with you. My gaze shifted slightly. Suddenly, a shadow appeared over the tall wall behind us. The person moved swiftly. Ignacio noticed and turned, but before he could say a word, he took a powerful punch right in the face. That punch made his 1.8-meter frame wobble. Joaquin gave him no chance to speak, grabbed his collar and threw him against the wall like trash. There was a loud thud. Then he swung another punch. Ignacio failed to defend himself, slid down holding his face, groaning in pain. Did you come back as some kind of animal? Joaquin asked. Ignacio clutched his face, too hurt to speak. All those years inside must have gone straight to the dogs. Don't your folks ever leave the house because they're too ashamed to show their faces? If you hadn't served your full time, I'd have given you a heads up and sent you back into rot. Let you drag through life half dead inside. Every single word was a sharp barb, spoken in a low, heavy voice, his whole presence radiating an oppressive intensity. This is what Joaquin looks like when he's angry. Ignacio clenched his fists and gasped for breath. Joaquin asked, "Can't talk?" Ignacio's earlier swagger disappeared without a trace in that moment. But he was tough too. After taking a few punches from Joaquin, he stubbornly didn't beg for mercy right away. He just turned his head, spat out some blood, gritted his teeth, and said, Sorry, brother, bye." Joaquin pointed at me. "Do you really need me to spell out who this is for?" Ignacio looked away awkwardly again, coughing as he apologized. Sorry. I brushed the dust off my clothes and stood up. Joaquin also stood up, his eyes sweeping over me from head to toe before he stepped forward. Are you okay? I shook my head. Aside from that slap just now, it's mostly Ignacio who's taken my hits. But that's only because I'm quick to react and make my move when I have the advantage. If Joaquin didn't show up today, I wouldn't have lasted long with him, and it would have ended badly. I exhaled, still shaken. Looking at Joaquin, I'm not accepting his apology. People like that, dangerous and worthless, are best kept where they belong. Joaquin nodded. I know. I'll walk you back first. What about him? He can't run away. After stepping out of the alley, I rubbed my face, cursing under my breath. Joaquin took off his long coat and draped it over me. I was definitely underdressed since I'd planned to just go downstairs, drop it off, and come right back up. Who knew I'd get caught up in this mess? I just saw his face was kind of swollen. Did you hit him? He asked, buttoning up my coat. I nodded. It made me feel a lot warmer. Joaquin squinted. He deserved that. I shrugged it off and waved my finger. He should be glad I haven't gotten my nails done recently, or I'd have left him disfigured. Joaquin was laughing off to the side. I asked again, how did you find your way here? Honestly, you showed up just in time, like a hero rescuing the damsel in those movie scenes. You didn't answer your phone. The place I was at for socializing just happened to be near your place. When I was in the car, even from far away, I saw it but didn't look closely. I figured I should get out and check it out. I nodded, then looked up to see my mom coming downstairs wearing her coat. I shoved Joaquin aside in a flash. My mom paused, then snapped. Celine, are you out of your mind? You're wearing clothes. What good does pushing someone away do? I didn't dare say a word. Joaquin touched the tip of his nose, then slowly moved behind me. God knows how much I wanted to kick him away. My mom huffed. I was wondering why there was no sign of you coming downstairs. Turns out you sneaked out on a date. I quickly looked up. Mom, you've got it all wrong. We're completely innocent. She reached out and pointed at my face. Look at your face. How red is it? Stop pretending. Would you believe me if I said someone hit me? But she wasn't about to listen to my explanation. She looked at Joaquin and suddenly beamed. Young man, why don't you tell Auntie how long you've been with my Celine? Joaquin, clearly encountering this kind of situation for the first time, locked eyes with my mom for a few seconds, then smiled. It's been a few weeks. I was actually planning to drop by and visit your uncle and aunt soon. That one reply made my mom happy. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Joaquin turned his head to glance at me. I didn't move, mainly because I didn't dare. He then withdrew his gaze and said, It's getting late. Auntie, I've got things to do. You should head back. Aw, won't you come up for a bit? My mom asked. No thanks. He lowered his eyelashes, looking quite humble. Next time I'll bring gifts. When we went upstairs, my mom was so happy she kept talking for a long time, tugging my hand. I like this kid. He looks way better than Andrew back in high school. That guy wasn't nearly as good looking. Me, let's talk this through calmly. Don't mention him. Then why don't you tell Mom how far you two have gotten? Chapter 9. Since that night, my mom's been nagging every day about when Joaquin is coming. I told her he's a busy guy. In the end, Joaquin added my mom on WeChat and sincerely said he was already preparing a gift to visit them. I stood blocking him at his bedroom door, totally baffled. What you're doing doesn't help either of us. When this ends, I won't be able to sit at the table for 3 days. Joaquin grabbed a jacket and threw it on, casually asking, if it's no good for you, what about me? Next time my mom sees you, she'll just spit. That's really scary. He laughed, slid his hand into the sleeve, put on his coat, but his expression didn't show he thought it was scary. I spread my hands. Joaquin, I'm not joking here, but seriously, you can't go. He turned to me. If I don't go, I'm just an impolite, unreliable jerk. Celine, that day, I felt your mom really liked me. You really think it'd be okay if I didn't go? I got stuck on that. He said again, stay well inside the house. Someone passed by me, and I turned around. Where are you going? To the office. Around 9:30. I was trying to trim my bangs, Trembling the whole time, Joaquin suddenly called. I stared at myself in the mirror and answered. Hello? It was noisy on the other end, and a voice, half familiar, half strange, said, Hey, is that you? Come over to Kaiha Road for a bit. Joaquin's a little drunk. I recognized it was the guy from the pool that day. Mickey, Joaquin actually gets drunk? I said, suspicious. Aw, don't even mention it. He clicked his tongue. Those old foxes were just pouring drinks for him. He laughed and said, You have no idea the way some women look at him. If I hadn't been watching, your man probably wouldn't have stayed innocent tonight. Before he could finish, there was a sudden thud, like his phone had dropped. Damn it. Why are you messing with your phone? Hurry up. The look in his eyes right now is like he wants to kill me. I had no choice but to throw on my coat and head out. A text came through halfway there, with the address of a bar on Kaiha Road. Why'd you go to the bar? To take him somewhere safe. Isn't the bar more dangerous though, big bro? When I got there, Joaquin was sitting on the sofa, silent, looking pretty down. I glanced at the guy next to him. Isn't he drunk? Mickey said, Yeah, he's drunk. Him being this quiet now, doesn't that say enough? I walked over and patted Joaquin on the shoulder. Do you still remember who I am? Mickey laughed and left first. All right then, I won't bother you guys. Joaquin looked up at me and, after a moment, nodded. I grabbed his hand. Let's go. Where to? Back home. You're not planning to sleep here, are you? He said. First, to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I was stunned. Why go there at this hour? Divorce. I blurted out without thinking. So sudden? You don't want a divorce. He smirked, a smile flickering in his eyes. His words made my head spin. What? He looked serious and nodded. I agree. When I didn't respond, he added, You like me. I widened my eyes. Ridiculous. He jumped in to answer again. I promise you to. I was so mad I laughed. Silent for a long moment, then sighed. Fine, whatever you say. For the sake of your being out of it, I'll tolerate you. Then I grabbed his arm. He closed his eyes in response. Mickey gave us a ride back to Ushuaia Pavilion. When we got out, I thanked him. He just winked at me. Yeah, really greasy. Right when I got inside, I wanted to ask Sandra to make a hangover soup. Then I remembered she took the day off today, so I helped him upstairs and into the bedroom first, then go downstairs to the kitchen and get busy, carrying the hangover soup to Joaquin's room. I told him to get up and drink it. He grunted and then turned over. Remember to get up and drink it. I reminded him again before getting up and going out to grab a change of clothes and head to the bathroom. But just a few minutes into the shower, everything went dark and the water stopped. Usually calm and collected, I could only be relieved that I hadn't applied any body wash yet. My phone was in the room, so after putting on my pajamas, I had to feel my way out in the dark. Halfway through, I wanted to check on Joaquin, so I softly called at his door. Joaquin? He actually replied. The power's out. I said offhandedly. A faint rustling sound broke the silence. Joaquin got out of bed. I got a little impatient. If you're getting out of bed, why not use your phone as a flashlight? He ignored me and kept coming over. Then, just as I expected, he tumbled onto the floor. I had to hold back my laughter and went to help him up. But the moment I bent over, my smile vanished, because I clearly heard the thin fabric of his pajamas rip right at the back of his underwear. When it rains, it pours. Huh? And Joaquin, like he hadn't noticed my hand before, immediately grabbed it and gave a gentle tug. The pleasant scent on him surrounded me, tinged with a trace of alcohol. I was about to get up when suddenly my earlobe was brushed by cold fingertips. I jolted. Joaquin's hand had already slipped around my neck, cupping the back of my head and pulling me closer. He kissed me slowly, holding me tight. With his other hand, he gripped mine. Fingers intertwined, I was completely frozen, left only to be kissed. My ears were burning all over. The rest gradually faded away. All I knew was that tonight was way too long, way too surreal, and way too unforgettable. Chapter 10. When I opened my eyes the next day, sunlight was already flooding the room. My head hurt, or rather, my whole body ached. I reached for my phone with effort and checked the time, 13:21. I actually slept until 1 in the afternoon. I dropped my phone. Still didn't want to move. Lay there for a few minutes, then suddenly raised my hand and punched the bed once. Damn Joaquin. I don't buy that he was really drunk. I shifted slightly, sat up with the blanket draped around me, ran my fingers through my hair, then reached down to grab the pajamas on the floor and slipped them on, heading downstairs. I saw a bowl of porridge on the dining table, still steaming. I leaned in and sniffed. It smelled pretty good. Sandra walked over with a broom, smiling as she said, "The madam's a lucky woman." I turned my head to the side. She lifted her chin toward the kitchen. "The gentleman's making breakfast for you." "He should be." Joaquin came out carrying a bowl of noodles just as I looked down, focused on my porridge. I glanced up at him but said nothing. He placed the noodles in front of me, his voice flat. "Finish it." I snorted. "Am I a pig? There's no way I can finish all this." He smoothly picked up a bite with his chopsticks. "Then I'll help you eat a couple of bites." I quickly stopped him. "What are you doing? How can I eat noodles you've already eaten?" But I got stuck right there. Joaquin looked at me, raising his eyebrows just a little. When I caught on, my face flushed, and I quickly withdrew my hand, pretending nothing had happened as I kept drinking the porridge with a straight face. Joaquin ate that mouthful of noodles, too. I cursed inwardly. Shameless. After breakfast, Joaquin drove me to the office first. We both silently agreed not to say a word about last night. At work, I zoned out a few times, constantly checking the mirror for my neck, worried my makeup might have smudged. Ugh, what a torment. In the afternoon, Abigail sent me a blogger's webpage on WeChat. Abigail, look up one of her posts from 3 years ago. The keyword is soul lost. I looked it up as she said. The blogger's ID is Beauty Excavator. After searching the keywords, 3 or 4 web pages came up, and one had the highest number of likes and was the most unique. There was only one picture. No one knows where this picture was dug up from. The people in it were neither celebrities nor internet personalities. It was a black and white filtered photo. The scene was a basketball court at night, with the street lamp in the corner shining bright. The boy filled more than half the frame, turned sideways, wearing a sleeveless vest, showing only one side of his face. It made my breath catch for a moment. He wasn't looking at the camera, fully focused on talking to someone nearby. He radiated an effortless, natural nobility, a rare smile curling the corner of his lips. My gaze slowly drifted downward. This post has a total of 423,000 likes. The comments are flooded with requests for the social media account of the guy in the photo. The top comment pinned at the front reads, "Ladies, all we found out is that the handsome guy's last name is Bai." I instinctively clicked on the photo, my eyes lingering for 2 or 3 seconds before saving it. Abigail just happened to text me, after this post went viral 3 years ago. Joaquin Bai's private life was disturbed. Like a celebrity, he was secretly photographed everywhere he went. Being able to identify him from just a photo and a surname is impressive. But Joaquin's parents quickly found out and gave whoever did it a serious warning. And the reason you can still see this post is that the blogger couldn't bear to lose that little traffic. So they set it to private and only made it public again 2 years later. I typed back, "You actually found this?" She replied, "I just suddenly wanted to look it up, and I actually did find it. Here, check out Joaquin, isn't he handsome?" I couldn't help but ask, "Do you still have feelings for Joaquin?" "Things aren't like they used to be. I only feel admiration for him now. Wishing you both happiness." I couldn't help but smile, and after a long moment, I replied sincerely, "Thank you, Abigail." She asked again, "By the way, is Andrew still in touch with you?" "No, I blocked him ages ago. Looks like he moved to another province." "Doesn't matter. I don't care. Some things have quietly come to an end, but it has nothing to do with me." On the way home from work, it was another rainy night, with thunder rumbling across the sky. I was holding an umbrella, standing by the roadside waiting for the green light. During the 40 seconds of the red light, a girl next to me was complaining that her friend's name was too hard to remember, and I suddenly paused. Actually, I feel the same way. The surname Yu is pretty rare, so from middle school through college, people often got it wrong, some even teasingly added an extra stroke on purpose. You even turned into Bai. Usually, I'd give someone hell for doing that. And if it was serious, I might even hit them. Celine was never exactly known for having a good temper. She was moody and irritating, hopelessly crushing on the guy in our class. Andrew. That's what the rumors say. Those first impressions meant nobody noticed how she always ranked just below Andrew in the school's yearly report cards. It was only because Andrew busted his ass that year on the college entrance exam that he ended up going to the same university as her. She looked down on guys like Andrew, indecisive, easily swayed, the kind who couldn't even tell what mattered more, family or buying stuff. The lover she dreamed of was like the cool but gentle hero boy from the storybooks she read as a child. The boy held a long sword, cutting away the suffering of the poor people in those stories, then cleaving through darkness to lead them toward the light. He would turn back and reach out to the girl he loved, then smile, a smile like the morning sun, especially beautiful. At that moment, the green light was on, the rain kept falling steadily, cars lined up waiting, pedestrians crossed the street in a jumble, and I stepped onto the wet steps. Through the curtain of rain, a familiar figure seemed to stand across the street. I walked closer and confirmed it. Joaquin held up an umbrella, the passing car's headlights lighting up his face. It suddenly reminded me of that post. Compared to that profile shot, the face in front of me had shed its awkwardness, the brows and eyes shining bright. Joaquin said, "Celine, you walk so slowly." He looked down and chuckled twice, clearly pleased, as if seeing me had made him especially happy. The heroic boy I'd always imagined, his smiling face seemed to melt into the one before me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, facing the cold wind. "Waiting for you." Waiting for me to do what? Waiting for you to walk towards me. Some seeds, once planted, will sprout at just the right moment. My feelings for you grew stronger and stronger until your whole being responded to me, finally making clear what I'd been brooding over all along. This is love, a kind of love that, once realized, fills you with wild joy. Celine, I am the stroke that cuts across your life. The end. Epilogue. Cupid. I met Celine in the middle of winter. I had another fight with my dad inside the house. He said he's poured so much effort into me just to see me succeed and eventually settle down. After a whole run of bogus logic, my mom sat beside me wiping tears. The couple was perfectly in sync. I quietly watched their act, didn't say a word, and when my dad came in to take a call, I turned and left holding the cotton candy. The name doesn't sound great, but Karen was dead set on it. She always thought cotton candy was a girl, kept wanting to dress it up, and I kept shutting her down. Just calling it that name was hard enough, so I had to stand up for it. As I was leaving, my mom caught up with me, handing me a sandwich and glaring, "Make sure you eat breakfast." Just me and the dog stepped out. The wind on the road wasn't strong, but it kept blowing, making it hard to eat. So when I passed a trash can, I stopped, thinking I'd eat before moving on. Cotton candy couldn't sit still, wandering all over. I held the leash loosely, letting it run, keeping my head down to eat quietly and seriously. It wasn't until I heard Cotton Candy's voice that I looked up. It was noon, with thick fog hanging in the air. Though the sun was out, it gave no warmth. Half the sky was hidden behind dark clouds, casting a pale rim along the thin cloud edges. When I first saw her, she was standing across from me, eyes lifted, and before she even realized she had stepped on the cotton candy, she instinctively furrowed her brow slightly. Her hair was neither long nor short, just right at shoulder length. Her eyes were a pale misty color. She wore a gray long coat, was tall and slender, with fair skin and a nicely defined nose bridge. Beautiful. That's what I was thinking in my head. Then I finished off the little bit left, tugged the string in my hand, and the cotton candy came running back under the pull. When she snapped back to reality, she immediately apologized profusely, saying she was sorry. I shook my head, about to turn and leave, when Karen's shout suddenly rang out from a distance. "This is scarier than any horror movie. Cotton candy, run," I said, after running a lap and ducking into a bubble tea shop. I noticed someone close behind me. I paused, seeing she looked pretty exhausted. Gasping for air, I asked, "Why are you running after me?" She froze, her expression flickering with a flash of anger, like something was off about how I'd said it. But she stayed silent, wiped the sweat from her brow, and stood up to leave. The moment she did, a flood of thoughts rushed through my mind. It reminded me why I always ran off when I heard Karen's voice. It reminded me why I argued with Luis this morning. Then I thought about the way my mom always looked at me, like the Bai family was doomed. I grabbed her. Are you single? She clearly didn't understand and looked confused. See, single? What do you mean? I said, marry me. That was just a one-sided request and question. I suddenly thought having someone to help me fool the family would be pretty handy. If she said no, I'd just hold on to cotton candy and leave quietly. But then I realized how totally insincere that sounded, like I was being presumptuous asking that. And anyone normal would want to slap me, so I quickly added, 2 million. This is compensation for the loss caused by her and me registering our marriage. If she still says no, I'll drop this ridiculous idea and go back to arguing with the old folks. But she turned around, crouched down, and said, all right, handsome. That's when I noticed her eyes were a light brown. Then introduce her, Celine, a true beauty of this world, usually bad with names. I replayed her several times in my head out of respect. The day we went to get the certificate, the weather was unexpectedly nice, and Celine sat quietly in the passenger seat. She crossed her arms and looked out the window. The wind blew in through the crack, lifting her hair. I couldn't help but drift off for a moment. If you regret it, you can say so anytime. She shook her head. No. I seriously counted. There are 56 trees on this street from where we started until now. Only after we got into the Civil Affairs Bureau did she start to show some of that nervous tension, especially since the staff kept sneaking glances at us every now and then. She leaned close, lowering her voice. Did I mess up my makeup today? No. Are you worried about that? Of course, even if it's not real. This is still the first time I've done this kind of shoot in my life. I want it perfect. Perfect. And perfect again. I didn't say anything, but the staff guy went, hey, handsome. You look great when you smile. Make sure you keep doing that later, okay? Celine turned to look at me. I lowered my head and looked at her. Are you sure? He just smiled? She asked, clearly doubtful. Why don't you question if she misread it instead? I said flatly. The staff smiled warmly and said, you two are a perfect match, both talented and beautiful, and even better when you smile. So I suggest you smile more, okay? So when the photographer raised the camera, Celine linked her arm with mine, tilted her head onto my shoulder, and smiled. I looked at the camera with a faint expression. When the photo came out, she was quite pleased with herself and pointed at me, saying, you're really aloof. Huh. I glanced over, took my own copy, and said to her, we won't interfere with each other during this time. I won't restrict you at all. When the time is right, we can separate. She nodded and said okay, then lifted her hand to brush her hair behind her ear, revealing a clear jawline. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, she walked lazily, swinging the notebook in her hand. As we stepped down the stairs, she asked, so, are you going to take me home? Get in, I replied. When my parents saw the photo of Celine, they fell silent for a moment. Karen was the first to look away. Did you find some B-list celebrity to fool mom and dad? My parents shot sharp glances at me. I placed the marriage certificate on the table. Joaquin? You secretly took some young girl to get the certificate behind our backs? My dad asked angrily. No, I tapped the table, keeping a straight face. I've been seeing her for a while, but didn't tell you because there were too many uncertainties. Now that it's all settled, and seeing how anxious you are, I went ahead and got the certificate. So you're not having a wedding? My mom snapped. I paused and said, it's cold now. I want to wait until the weather's warmer to hold it. Karen butted in, okay. I looked at her. She curved her lips into a smile, the mischief barely held back in her eyes practically written out for me to see. I'll remind you when the time comes. During this time, except for needing to take Celine to the Bai house once, Karen and I barely kept in touch. Since I was living alone, I wasn't worried about the cohabitation issue being discovered. This went on for about 2 years, and because Karen was caught up with her own stuff over those 2 years, she hadn't had time to pay attention to me. She just got back from out of town tonight and called to ask if she could crash at my place for a night. Celine's phone rang at that exact moment too. Usually she's the one helping me pretend, but this time it was my turn. I asked casually. So, what do I need to do? She lowered her voice and said, play the husband, how hard can it be? Help me out. I'll pay you 100. My hand on the steering wheel paused for a second. I smiled and said, all right. When I called her, I had no clue what was going on over there, just that she said the more over the top the better, to really make it a slap in the face. I got it right away. Afterwards, I took her back to Ushuaia Pavilion. I reminded her again to be careful around Karen. If Karen caught any slip-ups, that'd be the end of it. She nodded and said okay, then lifted her chin to tell me to leave. I glanced at her but said nothing, just turned to grab a set of women's pajamas and tossed them over. She caught them quickly and said, you even have these? Looks like you've been living better than me. I didn't bother telling her these had been prepared for her a long time ago. The next day when I got home, my mom was nagging about meeting her future daughter-in-law. Glaring at me, it's been 2 years, what's taking you so long? I said calmly, too soon. We're not ready for that yet. She muttered something else quietly, then said, forget it. Don't leave yet. I'll make lunch for Celine. You take it to her. But I've never actually been to her workplace. At most I've dropped her off a couple of times, so I know where the office is. I was about to call once I got to the company door with the lunch in hand when someone called out to me. Joaquin, you came. She drawled. I recognized him. He was the guy in the passenger seat across from us that day. Looks like one of those people who stand against Celine. The type who need to eat their words. So I answered slowly. I'm delivering lunch to my wife. She hesitated for a moment, then smiled. All right. Come with me, I'll take you there. Thanks. After she led me into the elevator to the second floor, her steps suddenly faltered. I looked straight ahead. Since that night, I never bothered to find out who this guy was or what his name was. All I knew was that, to Celine, he was her curse. Right now, this curse was holding her tight, his hand over her mouth, whispering softly. If he said something harsh, it actually fits the situation pretty well. But if he said something romantic or sweet, that'd be really lame. I glanced around, casually grabbed the slingshot on the table, folded some paper, and flicked it at him. When he covered his head and looked over, he caught my mocking smile. A thought popped into my head, if this is the rival I have to face, then honestly, it's like a grade school problem. Too lazy to waste time here, so I just called out to Celine and handed her the lunchbox. Didn't ask anything else, after all. That's her business, not mine. I'll leave as soon as the job's done. That night, Mickey called me over to play pool. He came with his girlfriend, and she brought along her own friend. I wasn't paying much attention, but just as I was about to lean down, her friend came over and handed me a tissue. I didn't take it. I looked at her, like, just say what you mean. She put the tissue back in her bag and tentatively asked, is Celine your wife? Yeah. She brushed a bit of hair off her forehead and said, I went to the same high school as her. What a coincidence. I was pretty surprised when I found out about you too. Since she was always hanging around Andrew back then. Andrew was the school heartthrob. I turned my head and cut in. Is the top guy at your school really that bad? She was silent for 2 seconds, then smiled slightly. I guess everyone has different tastes. But what baffles me is she used to be so into Andrew. They even dated. So why is she suddenly marrying you now? I handed the cue to the person on my right, took a sip of water from the table, and looked up at her. What was your relationship with Celine back then? Not very close, she said thoughtfully. If you weren't that close, then why are you so curious about her? I asked sharply, word by word. Doesn't being that nosy get tiring? She hesitated for a moment, then after a while said, I just wanted to chat with you about her back then. She and Andrew were really quite a match, but I don't know why they broke up later. I nodded. Then go ask Andrew. He knows better than I do. She was quiet for a moment, then smiled and said, I'm just giving you a friendly heads up. Back when Celine was at our school, she wasn't popular at all. I heard that after starting college. She chased Andrew for 4 years before he finally noticed her. If you're marrying her, you'll have to be careful in a lot of ways. When she put it that way, I thought it was kind of interesting. Holding the water bottle, I tilted my forehead and stared at her, asking seriously, You don't need to dance around it with me. Instead of going on about how much Celine liked Andrew, why not be practical? Like, how were Celine's grades at your school back then? Or what big, dramatic moves did she make to chase Andrew? She was silent for 2 seconds. Her grades were pretty good back then. And as for chasing Andrew, she was always right by his side. Isn't that enough? Not enough. I put down the water bottle, found a place to sit, and calmly laid it out. You say my wife really likes Andrew, but I don't see that at all. She seems more annoyed by him. Then you say her grades were pretty good back then. How good exactly? You can't say, because you only care about who her bootlicker was, who she was trailing around all day, and nothing else. They both got into the same university. You think it must be Celine chasing Andrew. So why don't you consider that it was actually Andrew chasing after Celine and working hard to get into the same school? After hearing it, she seemed to find it ridiculous and gently spread her hands, because it's Celine who likes Andrew. Of course she's the one chasing him. Oh, you're so sure Celine likes Andrew. Have you ever seen her confess to him or make her feelings public? I pursed my lips. We're married, but she's got a bad temper and zero patience, especially with guys. That Andrew who just got back from abroad a few days ago, she hasn't given him the time of day. In fact, it's the other guy who's been pestering her. Seeing the faintly stunned look in her eyes, I continued. So, if people like you just look at the surface and take it as truth, then I could say based on my analysis these past few days that Andrew has been harassing my wife, and she's completely fed up with him. You might want to argue, but the mouth belongs to me. What can you do about it? Her face darkened at my words, and she stayed silent for a long moment. I slowly stood up, dropping one final line. Keep whatever you want to say bottled up inside. You came to talk to me today, so I'm just teaching you this lesson. If you don't get it, that's dumb. If you do and still choose to be dumb, well, you've got a long road ahead. Take your time walking it. That's where the conversation ended. I stepped away toward the pool table without giving her another look. I'd always treated Celine as a business partner, but after tonight, I suddenly felt a bit protective of her. That awkward feeling stayed with me even when I took her to my mom's birthday. Until she got drunk. She was out after just one drink. I'd only ever heard about that kind of drinking capacity. Never actually seen it. Pretty soon I realized, being knocked out after one drink was nothing. It's way better than living for over 20 years being called mom. Those subtle feelings just vanished because of that whole scene. I knew tonight was going to be a sleepless one, and sure enough, it really was. That moment when Celine drunkenly kissed my neck, and she had absolutely no reaction to her sleazy move, just passed out like a heartless jerk, leaving me, damn it, alone in the living room to cool down for half an hour, tossing and turning, unable to sleep, my ears burning like a fever. So I ended up scrolling through apps one by one on my phone. Finally, I came across a high school graduation photo of Celine. Her gaze cleared in an instant. She was standing in the second to last row, slightly to the right, her face more youthful than it is now, with a faint, expressionless look. Her hair just touched her shoulders, with a neat fringe, her features pretty and carrying a hint of coldness, hands in her pockets looking pretty ruthless. And behind her, Andrew smirked, his hands still resting on her shoulder. I snorted softly, with an attitude that obvious. Only those idiots would spread rumors that you've been crushing on him for years. I didn't fall asleep until around 3 in the morning. I rarely have insomnia, but lately I haven't been sleeping well, especially Celine. During the few nights I stayed here, I kept having nightmares, always dreaming about talking to her. Talking was actually okay, but often, while talking, it would end up with touching. That made my insomnia worse. I'd suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and then find it even harder to fall back asleep. My mind filled completely with her. I wanted to ask if she felt the same, but couldn't directly ask if she dreamed about me. So all I could do was ask if she'd been sleeping well lately. She said yes, which made me feel even more down. After that, my interactions with her got awkward. Sometimes I'd habitually avoid her gaze, and even accidental touches felt like electric shocks. That night when I got drunk, I deliberately had Mickey call her. I just suddenly wanted to see her. After she showed up, even though she was pretty out of it, I felt pretty satisfied. Maybe I walked right into a trap. When we got home and the power went out, and she reached out to me, I lost all sense again, from the tips of my ears down to my earlobes. I started to burn, holding her hand, pulling her close, kissing her, a flood of kisses right by my ear. Celine, I called out. She responded. Are you going to sleep or not? I asked, running my hand over her forehead. She quieted down for a moment, then whispered, then let's sleep. I laughed, and while laughing, I leaned in to kiss her. It was right then I understood. Suddenly, everything made sense, what I was doing and why. This is what it feels like to like someone. When I caught her eyes, I wanted to look away. Even accidental touches felt intense, and I'd react way over the top. I'm not sure how many times my ears burned tonight, but it was definitely because of her. My heart raced all night, like I'd been struck by Cupid's arrow, with the name Celine carved into it, right in the chest. Some things can't be put off, so I deliberately waited for her to finish work to tell her what I was really thinking. I'm not good at confessing. I've never done it before, so I spent a while searching keywords online, but all the responses I found were either cheesy or painfully corny. Celine showed up holding an umbrella after a short while. She looked a little stunned when she saw me and asked why I was there. I said I was waiting for her. Then she asked a silly question, waiting for what? Waiting for you to come to me. I answered without thinking. That seemed to really touch her. She blushed the whole way back. No one but me knows just how adorable she looks with red ears. After going back inside, she briefly analyzed our situation. So, are you breaking up or not? Not breaking up. I locked the marriage certificate in a box. I said. She paused for a moment, let out a short laugh, and with a look that said I'm awesome, raised her finger. Then she reached for an orange on the table, peeling it while randomly asking if I'd ever liked anyone before. I said no. She said she didn't quite believe me. I turned my head, my gaze settling on her face. If you want to dig into this stuff, then let me ask you, have you ever liked someone? She hesitated before answering. Yeah, two, I think. Seeing my look, she quickly said, what's that look for? Isn't it normal to like someone? Can you honestly say you've never liked anyone before? No, I replied quickly and confidently. Locking eyes with her, I really haven't liked anyone. Except you. What's that supposed to mean? We stayed silent like that for a few seconds. Her eyes were full of doubt, but my frank expression seemed to win her over, and she said, well, I guess that makes you pretty impressive. I tilted my head, genuinely pissed off, grabbed the phone off the table, and sank back into the sofa, casually replying, I'm not being proud. You're just emotionally rich. She bit into the flesh and laughed. Joaquin, you're really sour today. What else? I'm probably the only one in her life I've ever been this jealous about. She quickly added, don't get salty yet. I haven't even said anything. Karen told me some of your secrets. I raised my eyebrows. She held up an orange, eyes on me, and said, your sister said you were kissed by lots of girls when you were little. If you can even compare those two things, all I can say is you're amazing. She let out a soft chuckle, then smiled sweetly. I'm just saying, when you were little, you were both handsome and cute, which made all the girls like you. When you were 16, during New Year at the Bai families, a bunch of older sisters went around saying they'd kissed you when you were little, which gave you a 6-month-long shadow of trauma. After saying that, she started laughing loudly, almost slapping the table. Laughing like that. She was definitely trying to piss me off. But the anger only lasted a few minutes. Just a passing thing. What can I do if I'm into Celine? I love her to death. I'm totally willing. End of the extra chapter.